But I want to kind of carry on that narrative. You know, Martin really touched on his digital transformation journey very briefly there. We could definitely go a lot more into it, but it sets us up perfectly for our next theme. If 2025 has taught us anything, as Martin said there, it's really about the real-time data, the advanced planning systems, and the AI-driven analytics that is really moving the needle in supply chain planning and strategy, and supply chain management as an influencing function. And as I noted earlier, companies are dealing with a tsunami of regulations and sustainability, trade compliance, and a lot of other areas. So new rules are cascading through supply chains, requiring visibility all the way down to tier end suppliers, as also Martin noted. But during our digital strategies event in North America this year, Ford's supply chain compliance lead actually noted that companies will need much more secure data exchange and to truly have a visible end-to-end supply chain to meet some of these future mandates and challenges coming up this year. So on top of that, there's definitely a push for supply chain teams to be resilient and efficient and to optimize inventory, transport, and costs, even while building those buffers and flexibility into the supply chain. So another trend in 2025 was definitely a notable shift towards AI moving into more practical pilot projects, with a big emphasis on cutting through the hype in these real applications. So we had John Rich with us, who is the lead logistics innovation. He was leading logistics innovation at Mazda, and he said at the conference, as he was also alongside Ford, and said, you know, we should stop using AI and start using IA, the intelligent automation. His point there was really to, you know, stop chasing that sci-fi vision of AI and have companies like pinpointing those manual processes and automate them intelligently to really move the needle when it comes to digitalization. And indeed, we heard many examples of exactly that at the conference, using algorithms to automate routine tasks like freight booking, document processing, and routing decisions. And in fact, at our Europe 2025 conference in Bonn, a panel on digital strategies for agile and competitive supply chains actually discussed the focus of how digitalization is evolving and what that means for pure cost cutting and to balance cost, resilience, and even sustainability in service, and why that really complex optimization really does require a lot of digital tools. And here's just a quick snapshot of that session where Gisela Linge, the Vice President of Global Logistics at Autoliv, gives the keynote and paints that vivid picture of a day-to-day life scenario of a future supply chain manager equipped with the right tools and using AI effectively. So we'll just look at that now. Thank you.
How would then a day in the near future look like, which is supported by AI, machine learning, and digital tools? I would start my day also with a strong coffee, and probably, as it would be in the near future, would ask my chatbot Chris, who is sitting on our digital supply chain twin or control tower, or however you want to name it, and want to get an update how, for example, the latest tariff changes that came overnight would impact my supply chain, would impact my customers, the duty impact, which maybe also link it to, for example, information we have in the systems on financially risky suppliers. And based on the income terms, would they be able to, handle another 25% on top of the cost they already have? So Chris, my supply chain bot, would help me in getting more insights, in visualizing these, and preparing me, for example, for an upcoming executive briefing. But it would also prompt me to ask me more questions and challenge myself, like what else should I think about, should I keep in mind? But there would not only be Chris, there would also be more. There would be maybe also a set of so-called AI agents in the S&OP area. So there you would have maybe Dana as an AI agent on the whole topic of demand planning, providing the scenarios here together with the bots out of the sales team, the agents. We would have maybe Connor on the supply and capacity side. And these AI agents would, so to say, more or less independently work together and provide me then the scenarios and the decision-making proposals for an SNOP upcoming meeting I would have later that day.
Perfect. So now something like that is still very much in its early stages, but we can see how the pieces are coming together across the industry. Companies are piloting AI-driven scenario planning tools. Some OEMs and tier one suppliers are using digital twins for in their production and logistics networks to really run those what-if simulations, like what if a port closed for 2 weeks and how would I reroute? So throughout the year, we've also heard about more simpler use cases of AI, like a chatbot that answers internal questions and standard logistic processes, and even helps suppliers with packaging queries. And those are pretty narrow use cases, but it does show that these technologies are already finding their way into the day-to-day operations. But I do want to point out that digitalization is not just all about AI. It is really to improve those digital tools are really to improve the everyday efficiency. I mean, many companies have talked about using data analytics to optimize transport routes, warehouse layouts, and inventory levels. And for example, at one of our events, we heard about a group of OEMs and suppliers that formed Container Exchange, which is a data consortium to share logistics information securely and eliminate waste. In another example, Ford and its tier one supplier Flex built a system to exchange detailed carbon emission data for part deliveries. And, that might sound a bit niche, but it definitely saved them a huge amount of time in reporting and to help standardize how to measure, carbon in the supply chain. But while we're talking about digitalization, I just want to also give a quick note on that our Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Digital Strategies North America conference will be returning in June in Nashville in 2026. And we'll be diving deeper into all of the use cases that we shared here around AI, machine learning, and more around about how to use those digital toolings for connectivity in the supply chain.